What is up, guys? Dale Boy here. So Sergey Kuzmin defeats David Price by a 4th round retirement in the corner. Sergey Kuzmin goes on to maintain his undefeated record, which is now 13-0 with 10 knockouts. Now the fight itself, while it lasted, it was quite entertaining. You know, Sergey Kuzmin was the smaller man, trying to get inside on Price, trying to work the body, trying to come up top with some hooks to the head. Whereas David Price, being the longer, taller man, was trying to keep it at range, trying to use his jab and trying to find that right hand down the pipe as Kuzmin was coming in. And yeah, it was quite a good fight while it lasted. I felt Kuzmin was winning most of the rounds just based on sheer activity. I felt he got inside on Price a little too easily. Price was catching him with some good shots here and there. A couple of good right hands landed, a couple of good right uppercuts as well. You know, Price was having success and it was very competitive, which is why it was disappointing to see this fight end the way it did. But nevertheless, I did think Kuzmin was winning. At the end of the 4th round, David Price retired in his corner with what was apparently a bicep injury, a torn bicep. Now apparently he suffered this in a training camp leading up to this, but he had to take the fight because, you know, it was too good of an opportunity to turn down. Now, did David Price do the right thing by pulling himself out? That's up for debate. I mean, he's been getting a lot of abuse online by fans, and that always happens when a fighter quits in a fight. You know, they get abuse, they get called cowards, you know, etc, etc, which is probably a bit too strong, to be honest with you. But ultimately, this fight was billed as last chance saloon for David Price, pretty much. So for him to pull out, it's not a good look. Again, I'm not saying he was right or wrong, but you know, you've got to say David Price, either this is last chance saloon or his chances are running out very, very, very quickly. So, you know, it might be hard on him to come back. Having said that, David Price knows his body better than we do, and maybe he felt that if he actually stayed in the ring, you know, the damage to his injury could get worse. It could keep him out of the ring for even longer. And, you know, he the way he was seeing it, he was just living to fight another day. Maybe that was the case. You know, David Price is 35 years old. He can't afford to be having long layoffs, like a year out with an injury. So maybe that's what he was thinking. Maybe he was thinking about self-preservation. And if that's the case, then fair enough. But, you know, I still think regardless, it's going to be very tough for David Price to come back from this. I mean, where does he go now? Is he just now an opponent to get brought into these type of fights as a fun fighter? You know, or is there any point in trying to build again and start from scratch? You know, fight a few journeymen, then kind of raise the levels of competition and go from there. I personally feel at 35, coming off this injury, it's way too late to be doing rebuilding jobs on David Price's career. Ultimately, to me, it's either retire or just become an opponent, basically. I think that is David Price's career from now on. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that at all. David Price, he's an exciting fighter. I like to watch him fight. So I'd watch him again if he's on TV. But, you know, people around him are going to have to discuss this seriously. And, you know, they're going to have to take a long think about this one, I feel, in regards to David Price's future. Now, as for Sergey Kuzmin, to me, he looked okay, nothing special. He looks like a decent fighter. He's going to give some fringe level guys problems. He will actually beat some fringe level guys. So I think Kuzmin is a good fighter. I think if you match him right, you know, he can be involved in some good fights. In terms of his development, he's still a prospect. He's still like 13-0. So maybe someone like Mariusz Wach would be a good opponent next. You know, Mariusz Wach, like David Price, is very tall. But Mariusz Wach is a lot more durable, as we know. Maybe that would be a good fight, you know, maybe in a 10-rounder. Get Kuzmin some rounds under his belt. Maybe you could get him in there with similar-sized heavyweights, guys like Christian Hamer, for example. You know, that could be a decent fight for Sergey Kuzmin. Kuzmin versus Kalnacki, I think that would be a very good fight. It depends how you want to match him, you know. But I think a Mariusz Wach would be a good type of fight for him. What do you guys think of Sergey Kuzmin? Where do you see David Price going from here? What did you think of the fight? Peace.